Welcome to the Millionaire Journey Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to guide and empower you on your journey towards financial independence. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Today, my guest is Karen Petersen with Fern Cottage Holdings. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, Glenn. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. We met through our little mastermind group. What is it? MHP Pros, I think, right?
Yep, it's Ryan's group. Yep.
And I was excited to hear your story. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I originally was a fire investigator by trade and ended up doing real estate for a number of years as a realtor. Had my own brokerage for a while my children were young. I started in the insurance industry fresh out of college. So left that after a couple of years to have my family. Then transitioned again into real estate full time. And then from there, ended up getting back into the fire investigation, code enforcement, plan review world as a fire marshal for a town in Connecticut, and did that for about a decade, and then transitioned back into the private sector, doing fire investigations. And throughout all of this, I'm very entrepreneurial naturally. So throughout all of this, I have had various real estate investments, especially having, had my broker's license and everything like that. I was, obviously taking a lot of clients out, but also looking for my own deals some of the time. And so I had purchased a handful of 3-family and 4-families over the years and transitioned away from that, actually relocated to Florida, and kind of said, okay, I'm moving here. I'm going to simplify my life. Sold a lot of the investment properties. And that simplification lasted about a year, 2 years at most. And then I was missing real estate. So we started investing down here a little bit. And somewhere along the line, I think it was a Facebook group, ended up seeing something about mobile home parks and kind of said, well, I never really thought about that. I've always thought about, the single family through typically 4-unit space. Maybe I might want to get into a larger apartment complex of some sort. My husband's a commercial architect, hotel to residential conversions, taking a, blighted building, right, and repurposing it old school, something like that has always sort of been, this would be fun to do as a project. And we have not done that yet. At some point, we probably will. But that was sort of the direction we were going, was let's focus on single families, 1 to 4 units, and kind of stay in that space and maybe eventually go into larger apartment complexes. And again, somewhere along the line, saw something about mobile home parks and kind of said, oh, what's this asset class? Never really thought about it at all. And did a deeper dive, started just learning everything I could, jumping on every call I could, and ended up purchasing a small 13-unit community up in Georgia. That same realtor a couple of weeks later said, do you want to buy another one? Because the one across the street that's 12 pads is also coming available, different owners. And so we were able to pick that one up also. And then I ended up bumping into a wholesaler who's phenomenal on one of the Facebook pages. And he had a couple parks in Georgia, a couple hours south, and they were larger ones. And I said, well, I kind of like these 2 up in the Macon area. Let's see what these other 2 are about. So we jumped on those because the price was right, and had 4 communities in the matter of about 6 months. So we went from 0 mobile home parks to 4 of them. And had some infill opportunities, had a lot of a lift with just stabilizing some of the tenant base and also fixing some of the homes, getting them, rent ready. Worked with a couple investors who basically took homes that were, really not worth that much because of the condition they were in and the age, basically sold them almost for nothing, right? A few $1,000s to get them to, repair them and then put decent tenants in. So we found that system was working quite well with stabilizing some of that tenant base in those communities. And then after about 18 months or so, kind of said, we still have our W-2s to this day. And so it was just becoming a little bit much because we self-manage. And so we decided to exit and sell. The market had appreciated nicely, and it was a good opportunity to be able to do so. And so we did. And we kind of said, okay, we're stepping back, taking a break. My husband was like, remember, we were going to simplify our lives. And
Yep.
that break lasted maybe 6 months. We purchased a couple more single family homes in there to flip and renovate and things like that. And just happened to be on Cruxy, or, one of the many emails that I get with different opportunities came through, and there was a community in Georgia. And I was like, this looks very ideal for us. It's a really nicely laid out community. It's actually deeded as a subdivision, believe it or not, each lot. So the spaces are all 1/4 acre to 1/2 acre, really nicely laid out, good MSA. We were like, and I kind of showed it to him. And I said, what do you think? And he's like, well, maybe. So that turned into a couple.
So each mobile home has a 1/4 acre?
1/4 to 1/2 acre lot. Yep. Each one of them.
Wow. That sounds like a great park.
Yeah. It's nice because people have space, they have yards, and there's some natural, just kind of like brushy areas that go between the backs of each home. So even the roads, they don't directly back onto each other. Everyone's got some privacy. The only bad thing is we periodically have to go in and brush hog the brush back because it's pretty aggressive, but it makes a natural fence.
Yeah. So did you say that one was the HOA one where you could actually subdivide the lots or?
So it is actually subdivided. The deed for that property is insane
Nice.
because it referenced like 83 separate deeds. So yeah, it's set up that way. We could actually like turn it into an HOA if we wanted. One of our plans when we purchased it, it had 44 homes on site out of 83 lots. So there's a heavy infill there. We've brought 11 homes in so far this year. I have another 6 on order, and then I'll probably order some more the second half of the year, which is actually now. It's crazy. It's June already. So we'll probably, fill another maybe 8 to 12 lots, I would guess, the rest of the year. I'm blown away with the amount of interest I have in homes there. I have wait lists, so it's a really, really good problem to have. So,
So
so
what
we,
those
yep,
are those brand new houses that you're putting on the lots?
they are. So we have our Georgia dealer's license, so we're able to floor and go on to commercial loans with them. And so that's been huge with being able to scale and infill pretty quickly and not have to organically accomplish that. So yeah, we're bringing in homes. We're able to offer them, for rent, kind of on terms for people a bit, which helps because people can stabilize their credit and in a couple years exit from us and go get their own funding. But for right now, we're able to kind of backstop for them and help them out and get them into houses. Huge opportunity there. It's been working, knock on wood, so far very well. And so, yeah, we're up to 55 out of the 83 lots filled. Like I said, we will probably close out the year um, between 60 and 70 lots filled, I would think, out of the 83. And then the goal in 2026 is to finish filling those. So it's been quite a process, but it's fun, it's rewarding, just phenomenal people that we're meeting that are becoming, our new residents. The community's really coming together. Everybody helps each other out, and there's a good buzz. We have a phone number on the sign that's out front in the community, and I can't tell you how many sign calls I get in a day with people just saying, "Hey, I drove by and I can see there's new homes in there. Do you have anything available?" So, the word of mouth just on the street. Like the mayor's son was actually looking to buy one of our homes. So I was like, that's pretty cool. You can't get better validation than that.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great property, and I love how it's like, I mean, really, how much I don't know what the income looks like, but I could imagine if you fill it up, you're pretty much financially independent, after that would be full.
Yeah, and we consider that. So we had a couple different kind of exit plans. One of them, when we realized we were going to be bringing in a lot of new homes and we had this infill opportunity, and because each lot is actually individually deeded, we did try for about a couple month period to sell the new homes with their land. And again, the buzz and the interest in it was absolutely phenomenal. People couldn't qualify. And so
Yeah.
after about 2 months of that, we were like, well, the demand is there, but the financial ability to execute on that is not. And so we changed pace pretty quickly because we needed to pivot because I had, all these houses sitting there just waiting to
Yeah,
sell,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
their debt that I'm carrying. And I'm like, well, this is going to get ugly pretty quickly. So we
yeah.
pivoted and said, you know what, it's going to stay a land lease community that fits much better with like the demographics of the area. Long term, it's still an option for us, right? We could theoretically like just sell it as individual parcels. I think at this point for us, from an exit standpoint, kind of like highest and best is probably actually to keep it as a land lease. We are, I joke like, you're always like, oh, like I'm never going to sell. I'm going to hold this forever. Like you said, like this is my financial independence. And then, I'm an investor. Everything's for sale for the right price. So
Yes.
while we're not ever intending to sell it, or at least not for, the next decade plus, I'm not foolish either. Like if the right deal came across our table, I would certainly look at it seriously. That doesn't mean for everyone listening to this to start reaching out to me asking to buy it because I don't want to sell it. But yeah, that community would give my husband and I, because it's just us, we don't have partners or anything like that. It would give us the ability to make a choice if we wanted to exit our W-2s at that point. The risk with doing that is the proverbial all your eggs in one basket. And so if we were to, the kind of equation was, well, do we trust? Like there are hurricanes that can actually come up there. We did have some damage to some homes from Helene because that just tracked in a really oddball manner and it came in way stronger across South Georgia than what storms usually do. And,
Yeah.
climate change weather is what it is. And so, is that going to be perpetuated in future years? So that was kind of one thing where we kind of hit the pause button. We're like, all right, do we want all our eggs in one basket? There have been tornadoes through that area before. So it kind of turned into, while we have insurance in place, and we make sure our policies are adequate, do we want to risk that? And look at, potentially retiring at some point in the next few years and just relying on this one community. And so the answer was, no, that seems a little too, not really within our risk tolerance. And so we are closing next week on another community, also in Georgia, but a different MSA. different area. It's a couple hours away, should not have quite the same weather patterns, should be slightly like regionally separated in the event a weather event does occur. So yeah, between the two, like that should, I think at that point, we probably will have the confidence to be able to, decide what the next iteration of our life looks like. That's probably a conversation that we'll be able to hold end of this year, first quarter of 2026, I would imagine.
Yeah, and the best part about these properties, having both of them, is you'll end up, it's like you kind of get scalability, just through having, instead of 80, 83 pads, you have another 50 add to that, to where the revenue is able, one park might be not performing as good as the other park, or maybe the 83 unit is performing nicely to be able to support the 50 unit. So you're spreading your risks through having two parks compared to having one.
Yeah, it was kind of the law of large numbers, right? Just like, the insurance world
Yeah,
kind of runs off it
exactly.
too. It's really like, how do you ameliorate your risk? I mean, do you stay small and like just be in a completely like risk-free area, but does that exist? Or do you just scale enough where you're kind of like, okay, I'm diversified. I can weather literally a storm over here and do okay over there. Or, again, there are different metro areas. If employment bases change, like we're not just where everyone's working for the same 5 or 6 employers, right? If there's a big layoff or something like that, we're able to, kind of be like, well, we've got totally different set of industry and major employers in this other market. So to your point, like one could, conceivably carry the other if need be for a year or something while some of that shakes out.
Yeah, I had two parks. They're a little bit smaller, a 3 unit and a 9 unit,
Nice.
but they were right off the water, and Helene actually flooded them. And it actually, there were some tenants that were already being evicted, like they were on their way out. So it actually forced them to leave to an extent. But I still had like 3 or 4 really big renovations, like 2 double wides and a couple and a single wide. And I had a duplex on the property. So you had to renovate both sides of the unit. So it turned into where that was kind of those two properties were the two properties that pretty much got me out of my W-2. I mean, they were paying me about $5,000 a month, but then after, like in October, that income shut off for a long, and this is the first month that it's actually going to start paying me again. But on top of the income shutting off, I had to put up $80,000 into the parks. So it's like a double-edged sword. So it's kind of like it's very good to know that you're well insulated. And what I've learned through this is that um, a reserve fund, and it's like you're like, oh, this would never happen, and then it does happen. You're like, you just don't want to be in a position where you're, I actually had to borrow funds from a friend. I had certain investors because this park I owned by myself, and I had to put up all the money myself. So I called some investors for some short-term loans to pretty much renovate the park. But at the same time, it's like putting yourself in that position to where if it would have been a different story if I didn't have the investors available to do that, So it's one of those things where these catastrophes change your risk tolerance. Like you thought you had a high risk tolerance until something like this happens, and you realize that maybe I should have a little bit more healthier of a reserve fund, So
Yep. Or rebuild it after you go through one of these.
exactly. I mean, I've completely changed my perspective on things. And kind of back to with what you were saying about I love the idea that, we all say, and it's all like presented to us, that we hold forever, we never sell. But one thing I've also learned, I'm not to say, I don't know if it's like the market was like really unrealistic in say 2021 to 22 timeframe, maybe 20 to 22. And, we had plenty of people offering us, but we're like, no, we're going to hold on to this. And then you like hindsight, you look back through, like now we have a lot of properties that are, in a position to be sold, but it's like, they're not the same prices that they were being offered then. So you're like, man, if we would have just sold then, this whole like millionaire net worth thing is like, it changes because now it's like, well, say you are a millionaire, what is your return on your equity? So my current equity, if you have $1 million, $2 million, it's like how much cash flow are you getting from that? And if it's like, it could be like 3 or 4% because you've grown all this equity, or we think there is equity there, but we could have sold it at the right time and then turned it over to get even a higher amount. And that's the one thing about selling real estate, that it helps you because it's like we're kind of married to the property, we're emotionally attached, and then you're like, I worked so hard to get this property stabilized, and now I got to sell it. But the end goal is to make the money, so
Yeah, sell or cash out refi and but somehow pull that equity out so you can redeploy it.
exactly. And I love I think we talked a little bit about before is you're currently doing this on your own without limited partner investors.
Correct. Yeah, it's just my husband and I. So far we've done everything solo.
Yeah, and it's something to be said about that. It's kind of like you can raise money and you can maybe buy like 5 more parks, right? So you could instead use the money that you were buying the 53 unit, maybe put up maybe 20% of that, and then you would be able to buy 3 or 4 more parks. But what it turns into is that then you're doing all the extra work and all that other stuff, having the I mean, yeah, you could scale it to grow that, but at the same time, it's almost like when you pay down debt, it's like not fun while you're doing it. You're paying down the debt. And then, but once you pay off the debt, which is, I believe, buying properties and growing, it turns into where you have this funnel of all this cash flow, all this revenue coming your direction. And it's something to be said about that for sure.
I think for us, it's not that we wouldn't invest with someone or partner. And there's some folks that belong in the same network of people, right? That I watch what they do. I'm very impressed by it. I mean, it's a conversation I might be open to having at some point. Just so far, like our own journey has just sort of been just us. And there is something to be said also for not having to have the stress of like answering to an investor and things like that. Like we're a year behind building out this current park, the 83 unit, a year behind where I wanted to be. And that was for a variety of reasons. And operationally and on-site management wise, I should have just made some changes earlier, and I didn't. And so I lost, 9 months or so of time that I really could have put to use with starting that infill project, 9 months to 12 months earlier. And that hurts your bottom line. And so like while I'm glad I went through that experience because it was still a very good learning experience, and I don't view it as like a failure or anything like that. I'm glad that there weren't investors behind us being like, oh, well, you projected this. And then it's like, yeah, well, we failed to execute on that. And here's why. And it's legitimate reasons why. And as soon as we kind of figured it out and got ready, because we hadn't infilled before. So this is a first. It's been a huge learning curve. And it took a while to get the dealer's license and stuff like that. So like once we got all that into place, it was kind of like smooth sailing, and we've got a system now, and it works really well. And our on-site managers use the system, and I have the same contractors, and I just text them. I'm like, hey, I got another house coming in next week. And they're like, okay, let me know when it gets there. And, the biggest one for me to coordinate is my setup guy, because I'm like, tractor trailer is going to drop it along the street, kind of blocks the street. So as soon as you can get there to get that thing towed onto a lot, please, because I don't want someone careening into it coming around the corner. Because we've been bringing in 16 by 76 units, so they are long. And so, he's been great. He's like, okay, just let me know, and I'll get there later in the day, and I'm not going to set it up. I don't have time for that, but I'll at least get it off the road for you. He knows the arrangement we have there. So, just having that that rapport with a handful of contractors, or I've got some where I have so much demand for 4-bedroom units, it's crazy. And as soon as I bring them in, I have people that are like, can I move into it like next week? And I'm like, I've got it down to 3 weeks now to get a house set up and CO'd and ready for living.
Pretty good.
But I'm like, I need 3 weeks, but I'm like texting like my HVAC guy, and I'm like, so the exterior unit's coming on this day. And, he's like, I'll be there the next day to set you up. It's working really well. Or if I tell them like I've got someone looking to move in, like I have one looking to move in June 10th, and the HVACs are getting delivered this week. And he's like, I will be there at the end of the week, and I'll get them set up so that person can definitely 100% move in on the 10th. And so things like that, like just having that rapport and having that network with our contractors is huge, because we're remote, we're offsite. My on-site manager, I cannot say enough good things about him. He is absolutely amazing. He's a rock star with this. And without him, we would probably actually fail. But he's been phenomenal. And then just like I said, just putting that contractor group in place, they know they have all my homes there to set up. They know what we're doing with infill. So I know I'm probably a pain to them with the last minute, like, hey, could you get out here and do this? But they know it's worth it to them long term over the next, 18 months or so as we completely fill this community. And so it's been working really, really well. But just that network and having those connections and having that trust between everybody that things are going to be done correctly. Working with the county for permits has been seamless. Like they're in favor of everything we're doing. We get, county commissioner called me one day and she's like, I can't believe what you've done over there. She's like, it looks amazing. She's like, please keep it up. Usually, we hear the stories, right, of, not in my backyard,
That's impressive.
Mobile home park, but, and this area, a lot of folks, including some of the commissioners, do live, in mobile homes, either on their own land or in communities. And so it is, a common lifestyle, but it's just, the feedback we're getting is great. And it's like I said, it's yeah, it's financial independence and everything else. But at the same time, it's very, very rewarding when, you have people that are like, I'm able to buy my first home and I'm the first person in my family to ever be able to actually own a home. Everyone else has always rented apartments, rented a house, and it's like, it's life changing for folks. And so, it's great opportunities and it's kind of a win-win all the way around.
Hey guys, if you want to learn more about our deals we're investing in, go to our website and sign up for our free ebook, 10 Reasons Mobile Home Parks Outperform Other Real Estate Investments. We won't spam you. We'll just keep you updated on the podcast and the deals we're working on. Now, back to the show. So let's talk about, just because I'm a little bit unfamiliar with it. So when you buy these mobile homes, you are renting it to them, or you rent to own, or is it how does that structure work?
So our goal is for the person that's interested in living in the home to actually secure their own financing. And we've had a couple people be able to do that, but it's the exception and not the rule. And so what we're basically doing is renting the home. There is, an option that comes with that for purchase at some point. But we're really just kind of renting the home to them for the first year or two. And most of them have already talked to our lenders. We're approved with 3 different lenders for the community. So they talk to them. They know what they're looking for in terms of down payment. They know where they need their credit score to be in order to obtain financing. And so most of them are like, within a year or two, I should be able to get my own financing on it, which will actually lower their monthly payment because my financing on my commercial lines, the market being where it is right now with rates, is high, right? And so if they get their credit where it needs to be and they have, enough money that they're able to bring to the table, we're also with the lenders allowed to give them rent credits. So we can kind of categorize like some of that rent they've paid over the past year or so and sort of give it to them in form of rent credits that can go towards their down payment. That helps them on the affordability side. And so between all of that, we are anticipating that pretty much everyone that's gone to home right now within the next 24 months will actually be able to get their own financing, work directly with their lender. I don't know if we're going to have to backstop any of their loans or not. We may end up in that position, which is okay. But
What
I
does
think
that mean?
a lot of them. So with some of the lenders, not all, but some of them have clauses where they will do the loan with your resident. But your resident maybe is a higher risk. Maybe their income isn't quite what they're looking for, or their credit score still isn't quite where it needs to be. Or, they have some things in their financial background, right, where it just raises some concerns to the lender. And so they will say, okay, well, we're going to do the loan to this resident for their home. But if they default for any reason, you then become responsible to start paying that loan. And, at that point, we can work with the lender and, pull that back into like a commercial line portfolio if we need to. We can sell the house, rent the house, it comes back in our control and we work hand in hand with that lender, but the lender's protected. So they're not going to have to have a repo, go through that whole process. It comes back to the community where you're gonna still take care of the lender and pay on that loan.
Yeah, I've seen a few deals like that where we had them under contract and there were some loans that were held in the park's name, like what you were saying. So do you know the process? Say if somebody does, decide default, is it an eviction process or is it a foreclosure process? Does it take how long does it take to get rid of the resident or move the resident out?
So that's probably a question better geared for the actual lenders that hold the loan, because the loan is between the resident and the lender. And then behind the scenes in the paperwork is, and in the event of a default, the community is going to backstop this loan and pick it up and make the lender whole, either pay the house off or work with the lender to put it onto some type of commercial line. So we had one resident who did default. He wasn't paying lot rent. Turns out he wasn't paying. It was a 21st mortgage loan. He wasn't paying them either. And so we worked with first. They brought it to our attention. They're like, hey, is he still living there? Do you know anything about him? Is he paying you lot rent? I said, nope, he's a couple months behind on lot rent. Realized he was a couple months behind on the payments also for the house. He was still living there. Our on-site manager was like, hey, he's living here, but there's furniture and stuff moving out pretty much every week, evenings, weekends, whatever. I said, all right, well, that's kind of a clue. Tried reaching out to him. He wasn't responding to us, wasn't responding to the lender. And so the lender and I were keeping tabs. And I'm like, hey, I know the bed and the couch left yesterday, right? And then another bed and the couch left, 2 days later. And so it's like, well, we think he's leaving. So the house was finally vacated. And we're like, yeah, it's vacant. He's abandoned it. That was pretty easy. I don't know what they did on their end I'm sure they filed something, right, for like abandonment or whatever, eviction or something to make sure yes, he's gone, it's coming back. They called us up. They're like, okay, you have, X amount of time to pay the loan off. And I said, well, here's the thing. You trashed the house and I have a lot of work I need to do to this. We actually sunk $20,000 into that house to fix it. It's a 1,800 square foot double wide. So it was worth doing the repairs to it, but it needed a lot. And so first said, okay, we'll give you 6 months to rehab it and get it reoccupied or pay the loan off. So we were able to fix it up and
And you
get
don't
it.
have to make payments on it while you don't have to make
No,
payments on it at that time?
we were, but
Oh, okay.
it was minimal. It was, he actually got that loan when interest rates were super low. So I think, and it was also based on like the balance left on the house. So I think it was only like $250, $300 or so a month we were paying. It wasn't enough to like break the bank. It was worth it just to keep them
Nice.
happy. We had a game plan. We took the house back into inventory, basically fixed it up, got it rented. It's on, like a rent to own type agreement at this point, and it's older. So it's probably always going to kind of sit with us, I would imagine. But we were able to put that onto a commercial line with 21st. And so they hold the paper on it. We, pay through with the tenant each month. They pay the rent. We pay first their portion. Lot rent is ours, and it's working pretty well. So I think it's like a 15-year term with them. So it was, we made lemonade out of lemons, all of us involved, because it obviously wasn't
Yeah.
the ideal situation to have the house come in, but it wasn't, it was kind of a hiccup in life. It wasn't like it was like this end all be all. It was just like, all right, like here's the paperwork that needs to be done. Here's the process we need to do. We need the time to fix this house and then get it re-tenanted. And it's been great. And the tenant in there now is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I have that question when talking with investors. They ask about, like, say, the rent to own process, and they're like, oh, they look at it, not to say that they're thinking predatory, but they think that, oh, well, the good thing is that you get the home back. And I'm like, yeah, but our goal is to never get the home back.
Right.
I don't ever want the home back. I never want to go inside this unit again. And I want it to be just paying lot rent so I can move on to something else. It's like, obviously you don't want to have to have the capital outlay to do
Yeah.
exactly with what you're saying, spend $20,000 to renovate. You'd rather take the 20,000 to buy like a new mobile home to move it to your park instead of
Right.
having to go back at an old unit and having to renovate.
Yeah, exactly. Like to your point, I mean, that's a couple more lots I could have infilled, right? That now is tied up in one older house. And again, it was the right thing because I had people that were offering to like buy it and move it off my lot for me. And I was like, well, that defeats the purpose. I'm trying to fill my community. So that's just one more lot I have to fill. And prices being where they're at, I'm bringing in singles. And this is a really big double. So I was like,
Yeah.
it's worth it to work with what I have. But yeah, it was, like I said, it was a hiccup. It's another chapter in the book of investing and the book of life. And I would have preferred it not to have happened that way. But, it didn't sink the ship, thankfully. And it worked out, as I think a win for all parties. So, and it's back on my books and, it's just going to take me 15 years to earn it all back.
You've become a better operator, really. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is terrible. I say it in the office all the time. I was like, well, I guess we're going to learn something today.
Yep.
When there's these headaches that come up, you're like,
I was like joking
brutal.
with the lender because they're like, well, and I'm like, I didn't put the tenant in that one. I'm like, I inherited them when I purchased the community. I'm like, that's not even mine.
Exactly.
They're like, you guys underwrote it. So, but, people lose their jobs, life happens. And that's what happened in this
Yeah.
case. He lost his job and instead of communicating like he probably should have and having conversation with everybody and figuring out like an amicable way to, just part ways or figure something out with his house, he didn't do any of that, unfortunately. And so, yeah, it was a lot of like, has he moved out? Can we take possession? Are we all going to get arrested for going in this house?
Yeah. I think the thing is just that a lot of people are, if they're listening right now, they would hear that and they're like, well, I don't want to deal with that. But it's like, what I would say is that it's part of the learning process. And I think that you're better for it now, even though you didn't want to go through it in the first place. Like, you're going to know, like, it's like almost like you can see the next 5 steps going forward. You're like, oh, I've been down this road. Let's not do that because I don't want to do this again, like 20 grand later,
Also I guess, I kind of almost have increased my risk tolerance to that because it's like, it happened. And I was like, okay, not my first choice to go and do, but not the end of the world either. Solvable. You just have to be creative to find the solution sometimes. And so, I was like, there were still exit options there. Like I could put that house on the market as is, sold it to an investor,
Yeah.
told them that they needed to either work with the lender to pay it off or whatever it was, like I had options with it. We just chose to go that particular option and retain control of that house and have a little bit more control over like the end tenancy in it. But, like if I look at other communities to purchase and they have a lot of houses needing to be renovated or that you're going to have some changes in some of your tenant base for a variety of reasons, I don't look at that and shy away from it. Whereas, 4 or 5 years ago when I first bought my first mobile home park, that was intimidating. And now I'm kind of like, okay, like to your point, like we've learned. And so now it's like, there's definitely conversations with my husband where he's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, hey, guess what I just got off the phone with, but we problem solve it. You grumble about it for 10 minutes and then you're like, all right, that's that. Not going to change the situation. Let's find the solution, right? And let's find a positive outcome. And so I think you just have to go in with like that kind of tenacity and that resilient mindset of just expecting, the book to be thrown at you sometimes and all the curveballs that come with. And, it's the same no matter what type of asset class you're in real estate. I mean, you have apartments, you're still dealing with tenant turnovers, evictions. They leave, their leases up and they leave nicely. And you're still like, could you have taken everything with you? Like now I got to figure out where to put this roll-off container, right? To clean your unit out. I mean, you're still dealing with the same hassles and the same headaches. I love when people are like, it's mailbox money. And I'm like, no, it's really not. It's anything but passive.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, it's like the more kind of things that we have thrown at us, like the more we just learn how to deal with that and cope. And we're like, okay, like we've been through this before. We know what to do. And communities that we purchase, like the one we're purchasing next week, like there's 10 homes there that need to be fixed and re-tenanted. So, and a couple of them are pretty heavy lifts. I'm actually not sure if I'm going to be scrapping them and changing them out or if I'm going to be able to work with what's there. But, like we're ready for it. It's like, okay, like I've got my contractors lined up. I have a game plan. Within 6 months, I want to have these homes re-tenanted and good to go. And, and I'm pretty sure we're going to execute on that, as we need to. I've actually had test ads out for that community. So I have 4 or 5 people now that are waiting for homes and they're like, just let me know as soon as you have one ready. And I'm like, well, that's a good problem to have. So I'm just hoping I can get the homes ready in time before they find something else to go rent. So that's my push is like, I want to have a couple ready to go, ideally by July 1st. There's a couple that don't really need too much. They're mainly just clean outs and some paint and some flooring. So I'm hoping I can have 2, maybe 3 ready to go, within early July and meet these folks' timelines to be able to get them in. But, it's just, I don't know, it's a lot of strategic planning and a lot of, okay, what's realistic? And then reverse engineering, right? Like by this date, I want to have this accomplished. So what needs to be done? What week? Where do we need to be? And then just checking in and having those conversations with all the different stakeholders, contractors, on-site managers, right? My husband and I, lenders, just like where are we at? And, where we are in the execution. Do we need to push? Are we on track? Are we ahead of schedule? That like never happens, and just executing on it and operationally like getting up and just, rinse, wash, repeat every day. Like this works. And we're just going to stick with kind of the system and just keep plugging ahead. And then, like I think when you're in the day to day, you lose focus a little bit. Well, you don't lose focus, like you stay very focused, but I think you're almost hyper focused. That's probably a better way of putting it. So you're kind of hyper focused on the day to day. Like, what do I need to accomplish today? What do I need to accomplish tomorrow? Which contractor is going where? What do I have here? What moving pieces are going on? Am I on track? I got someone moving in a week. Am I going to make that deadline? Like, what do I tell them if I need to push it a few days? Like, is that going to work with them? They're going to be living in a hotel, like all these types of things go through your head. And then like I step back and, I was talking to my husband the other day and I'm like, I look back at like the past 18 months and I'm like with this one community and I'm like, holy cow. And just what we've done. I mean, the first house came in the week before Christmas. Let me tell you, do not have 7 brand new homes delivered the week before Christmas. Thank you to the factory that did that. It's a lot. And they sat pretty much, so there's a story there too, but they didn't really get set up. I mean, it was the first homes we'd taken in. So we didn't have really a system. I didn't have all my contractors like at my beck and call. Now they're, again, like they know what we're doing. They know we pay our bills quickly. That's a really good thing to keep your contractors happy. Just pay them quickly. And then they'll show up for you the next time you need them. And so, we were just kind of putting that system together a bit. And then it's, Christmas time. So everybody's skeleton staffed if they're working at all. And so after Christmas comes this thing called New Year's. And I haven't figured out if it was residents in my community or the community across the street, but 2 of my brand new homes ended up with bullet holes in them.
Oh.
Yeah. New Year's night.
Terrible.
So, and the lender had the insurance policies on the houses, which was fine. And they had changed insurance companies, and that insurance company change took place at midnight on January 1st of 2025. So the 2 insurance companies are going back and forth with trying to figure out what exactly the timestamp was. And did this happen 1 second before midnight, or did it happen 1 second after midnight for who was going to actually be responsible for it? So it took about 2 weeks or so for the insurance company to get one of them to agree and commit to, yes, we're going to cover this loss. And then it took me another 2.5 months to work with the factory, get the repairs made. Adjusters had to come out, right, and look at the damage, assess it, blah, 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 estimates back and forth. And so those 2 houses I did not have set up and online until April. So they came in the week before Christmas and they weren't ready to be lived in until April, just because couple people decided to have some fun with some 9mm and a 22 and put them through windows and siding and walls. One of the bullets actually launched.
About how many shots was it through the
It was a
like
total,
target practice?
yeah, kind of. It was a total of, we think, 3 shots.
Okay.
But they passed through the walls really well. So outside, through a window, through front and back of a wall in one of the bedrooms, lodged in the micro hood. That was where the bullet was actually retrieved from, was the micro hood. Just as well no one was
That's
in.
frustrating.
And I think it was opportunistic, right? Like people knew they were vacant. I think people were just over. There's a lot of
Yeah.
empty lots around there. It's a huge open field because the whole community is like 26, 27 acres. And this particular section is probably like 5 or 6 acres wide open. So I'm sure it was just opportunistic. People knew no one was in those homes. Fortunately, they hit the homes with whatever they were doing. And so it was just as well no one standing in that home because they would have taken a headshot at the microhood because it came right in at that. And then another one like clipped the corner of the house and went into the siding on the next house. So that one wasn't too bad. It just had some cracked siding. And then one of them actually hit, and however it ricocheted or whatever, it actually went through the screen, but didn't go through the glass on that house. And the police recovered that bullet from between the screen and the window. So, and
Wow.
we got the police involved. There's a police report because I was like, well, I'm going to have insurance claims. These are brand new homes. Like they shot, the problem with mobile homes is you can't just go in and be like, oh, let me just paint and spackle that. It's the wallboard, right? And it's from the factory and it's already got like its little like wall covering on it with its, whatever texture they do. And I'm like, I can't just fix that. I need like a new wallboard from the factory, which is in Alabama. My house is in Georgia. It's however many hours away. Like, how are we going to like logistically do this? And the micro hood is under warranty. So I'm like, well, I need their micro hood to replace the micro hood that just, got shot up because that's not going to work again.
No.
And so it was just, and then like, it's stupid damage. Like it's not even a lot of damage to these houses. And I just need like a couple windows, a couple pieces of wallboard and a micro hood and I'm good to go, and a screen. And because everything's brand new under warranty and you want to keep those warranties in place, I was like, okay, it's an insurance claim. Like, let's just do this, by the book, above board. And so, yeah, it was like a 4-month process to get these houses back, and just a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of logistics. The factory's like, how are we doing this? I'm like, it's an insurance claim. They're like, what? I'm like, don't ask. I just need like this many pieces of wallboard, please. So it was a process. But, like I said, it's you live and learn. Like if I hope I never have one of these again, but if I do, like I know what to do. I know how to work with the lender on it. I know how to work with the insurance companies. Like it's don't bring homes in around New Year's.
You have 53 units under contract. I guess there's probably not too much, I wouldn't imagine too much planning outside of that because it seems like it's the next thing to be done. But where would you say you're at? What's your 5-year goal? Like what would you like to be?
I don't know. Like you pointed out, like with these 2 communities, we could stop. And so, we've definitely had some conversations about that. Like I think that the thing with entrepreneurial mindsets and kind of that investment mindset, and then like you almost end up like addicted to the deals, right? You're like, oh, I could get this, I could get that. And so the question for us is kind of like, how do we define enough? Is enough financial? Is enough, like the kind of joy we get from doing this? Is enough the aggravation that comes with it? We're like, no more, and I think that definition sort of moves day to day. Like when my houses are being shot up, I'm like, enough of this. When things are going great, I'm like, let's do another 10. So I don't know fully what that's going to look like for us. I'm still watching deals that come in. I'm still talking to brokers. If the right thing popped in the right area, I would probably pull the trigger on something else. But I also know because like we don't have investors, our cash reserves are our cash reserves. And I also know what I need to do to, get these houses online in this other community, start the infill process there. And there's a pretty good lift there. I mean, the guy that's got it is phenomenal. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of land. It's a fantastic community already. Tenant base that's there is stable. There's just 9 homes and his office is actually the 10th and that one's in good shape. But, they just need to be gotten ready and rented. And then there's infill and there's an expansion there of 16 more lots. So that's infrastructure, like ground up infrastructure and bringing homes in there too. And so I think that's probably going to keep us busy between the 2 communities and our jobs for the next year or so. So I kind of think, if we scaled again, we're honestly probably a year plus out from making another move. But, you never know. I think my husband cringes every time. I'm like, hey, look at this. And he's like, I don't want to look at that. What'd you find on Crexy today? Or who just emailed you what deal? And I don't know where the next deal would be if we would stay in Georgia, if we stay in the Southeast. I live in Florida, but Florida's insurance and tax market is a little tight right now. Getting and keeping an insurance is stressful, and the property taxes have actually increased a lot across the board since we moved down a few years ago. I thought New England's were bad, and I mean, they're still a lot worse than Florida, but Florida has, our personal taxes have, more than doubled on our property in 6 years. So, there's like, I'm not really jumping up and down for Florida at the moment. Other areas of Southeast definitely interest me. And then, there's some stuff in the Midwest that might interest me too. So we're watching markets. The good thing with kind of hitting the pause button a little bit on necessarily pulling the trigger on buying the next community is it gives me time to learn a lot of different markets. So I do an immense amount of research on different states, different MSAs in certain states. And I have, kind of some favorites in my head of, okay, if the right deal came up here or here, absolutely would want to look at that. So, it really comes down to like how quickly we can execute on what we need to execute on the current community and the one we're purchasing. And then, once that happens and we can, refi out of some stuff, cash out refi, what's next? And so, and it may be that there isn't a next, and it may be that there is. We're still pretty young, so there's probably going to be a next, I would imagine. We'll see.
Awesome. So Karen, thank you so much for coming on. Where can we find you?
So my personal cell is 203-733-8380. I am always happy to answer any questions that anybody may have. I don't always have the answers, but definitely happy to share, what we've learned, what we found that works, anecdotes, you name it. And email, the best one is Fern, like the plant, FRN, cottageholdings@gmail.com.
No offers unless they're 100,000 a pad.
Right. There we go. We'll talk for that.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Journey podcast. Please rate, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with somebody you think would enjoy listening.